online and continuing to the important work we do as classified professionals. With this, the Classified Senate would like to continue this important work and continue building a sense of community with each other and supporting each other in these uncertain times as we continue working on the Classified Senate business. So here are some of the things that we will continue through the semester. We will have our first Zoom Classified Senate meeting on April 16th. We have our upcoming elections for the Classified Senate Executive Board. The nominations for the positions will be, it's due on April 30th, and the elections will be held in the second week of May. We are also, as Classified Senate, we're also launching a Caring Campus California initiative, which is a initiative that was started by the Institute for Evidence-Based Change that has partnered with our State Chancellor's Office, and our State Chancellor's Office is actually funding this initiative for us. And this is to implement caring campuses to help increase classified professionals' student engagement that goes in line with the implementation of the Vision for Success. Caring Campus will use a coaching model to implement the initiative. A coach will work with both our leadership team and the classified professionals to build a plan for us. And this will help us actually in this time, which is perfect for us because this will help us support the students and also support each other as we as classified professionals move into this virtual office environment. So those are the upcoming things that, you know, Classified Senate will be moving forward with. Two additional things that I would like to say is I want to give a shout out to the IT department, our fellow classified professionals who have worked tirelessly to get everyone on board to transition online, including the classified professionals at CTTL and the ASLT department. So kudos to everybody who has helped so much to get everybody transitioned online. And then lastly, I'd like to read a statement from CSEA. And this is a statement from CSEA to our CSEA represented classified professionals. So here it goes. The California School Employees Association, CSEA, chapter number 33, wants to assure our members that we are working diligently on their behalf to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the district that protects your health, pay, and work status during this unprecedented event. Thank you.
Dr. McVean.
Thanks, Dr. Jackson. Still, good morning, everyone. I'm Aaron McVean. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Educational Services and Planning for the district. Nice to be doing the Skyline Town Hall because I still think I know about 75% of the names on here right now out of the 220 folks tuning in. So good to see everyone, although under difficult circumstances. I wanted to give an update. I had a quick slide, but I don't know if anybody's able to put it up right now. So I'll kind of talk through what it showed you. Right now we're operating as a district under a very different model than I think a lot of us are used to. One that some of us have never operated under before, probably most of us. And I wanted to give an update about campus access. But let me start with a little bit of a timeline. Back on March 3rd is when the district stood up at what they call its Emergency Operations Center, or EOC. Some of you may have seen information come out about this, or you've heard the acronym EOC. But what that was is when we make when an emergency declaration is made, the Emergency Operations Center is activated for any institution, and that allows us to establish a different type of decision-making structure. It also allows us to later submit to the federal government for reimbursement from FEMA, as a matter of fact. So that started on March 3rd, and we were doing preparations for being able to transition to online with some different expectations. And then on March 17th is when we got the shelter-in-place order from San Mateo County and the Bay Area counties. And so on March 17th as well is when we had to establish an access branch of that EOC. And I was lucky enough to be put in charge of that. We had the state of California give us the executive stay home order as of March 19th. And then we've learned of the K-12 closure being extended in our counties through at least May 4th at this point on Wednesday. And Wednesday was also the same day that the board agreed with our recommendation that we extend the rest of the spring semester fully online. So that kind of gives you a sense of how rapidly this has been changing for us. And so we've been trying to manage what that all means for all of us under these orders and what it means for access to the campuses. I just did the CSM's town hall right before this. So we had Emily Barrick on there. She's our Director of Health Services. She also oversees the health branch for the EOC. And she's our county liaison. She brings in a report, and the EOC meets every single morning at 9 o'clock. So we operate in this 24-hour cycle, and every morning Emily brings in the latest updates from the county and surrounding counties and the state about the number of infections, the number of reports, the best direction, best information that they have. And so as you can imagine, it's a lot to be focused every single morning at 9 o'clock exclusively on that type of an update, but it's part of what has been informing how we're trying to manage access to spaces. As Sherry mentioned, we do have a lot of staff who've been continuing to maintain essential operations on our campuses. Public safety has been there, facilities, custodians as needed, as well as ITS. In many ways, they put themselves in a position, much like folks at our local grocery stores, where they risk greater exposure than those of us who haven't had to have that direct interaction. So we really appreciate the work that they've been doing, and part of managing access has been to respect the fact that every time somebody goes into spaces, we're having to have them interact with public safety and then deploy custodial services, because one of the updates we always get is the latest information on how long this virus tends to live, whether it's on physical surfaces or even in the air. And so we try to balance that information and clean spaces appropriately afterwards. So all of that said, we are now under this new reality of recognizing that so we'll be extending online only through the rest of the semester. What I talked with the EOC this morning about is want to put in place a very structured, purposeful process to allow folks to access their offices over the next couple of weeks in order to prepare for this new reality. Next week is spring break, and so we discussed working with the managers and directors in order to first provide classified staff, classified professionals access as needed in order to maintain critical services in a remote fashion all the way through the end of the semester. We have been consistently having individuals, very few, a skeleton crew, access financial aid and A&R in order to retrieve mail and process financial aid for students, as well as processing applications for specific programs. But now we're going to be moving into the first ever time we're going to be running a registration cycle completely remotely. And so that's going to require some different supplies and materials. So we'll be working for next week to establish a schedule, be very purposeful as we have been, maintaining an access calendar in order to be able to provide access for folks, recognizing that this will be what is needed. In the week following, possibly the 2 weeks following, but in the week following, then we'll be looking to provide access for faculty to their offices to ensure that they can access all of their materials as well. I recognize some folks have requested access, and we've asked them not to because we expected to have some change in the shelter-in-place order. I don't think any of us expect there to be much of a change as of April 6th. That's when the county shelter-in-place order is supposed to end. The state executive order doesn't have an end date on it, so I assume we'll have some updates there. But we recognize that this is new information about going through the end of the semester, so I ask for a little bit of patience, but we'll be getting out specific information about how we plan to allow that access and still be able to maintain appropriate social distancing protocols, as well as be able to know who's coming on campus and what spaces they're accessing. For anyone who's really wondering, the reason that we are trying to keep as tight control and tracking in place for that is in the occurrence of a positive test for someone in our district for COVID-19. The first course of action is to try to determine every single space they've accessed and whoever they've interacted with on our campuses in order to provide that information for the county so that there can be follow-up. That's the difference between the individual transmission that they talked about versus community transition or transmission. So that's one of the reasons that we'll be asking for information about who's coming on campus, when, and what spaces they're accessing, just in case. But we recognize that folks are going to need access now. For folks who are holding on to, they can make it through a couple of weeks and expecting that we might be back. We know that's not the case now. So appreciate everybody's willingness over the past couple of weeks in sorting through this. And please know that we're going to work to make sure that folks get access to everything they need to ride out the rest of this semester in an online only format and likely through the summer. And for those of you for the faculty not teaching this summer, this might be the last time that they come on campus until the fall even. So we recognize the challenges that would create. So that information will be coming out in the next few days in order to give you the specific information about how we'll manage that. With that, I'll stop the update on access and willing to take questions as they come in. So thanks, Dr. Jackson. Thanks, everyone. And good to see so many familiar faces today.
Thank you, Aaron. We appreciate it. And there was a question that came in about access, and I think you addressed that. So thank you very much. We will now go into our presentation. And as I said, we pulled this together in a very short period of time. So I'd like to start off with administrative services and instruction and then student services. And basically we're going to follow the slides as they are presented. So with that, I want our host to get us started.
Dr. Jackson, the first 3 slides are yours related to COVID and EOC. Just wanted to note that before you hand off to Dr. Taylor Mendoza.
All right. Well, that's a change. So as the slides are transitioning, I will let people know I am a techie, but like everything else, technology works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm having some challenges with my computer. So I'm seeing what you are seeing. And so if we could go to the next slide about COVID-19. I think a lot of the information that we were going to cover in this slide, Aaron covered in his presentation. So I won't, go over it again other than to say, we received the shelter in place on the 3/17, and really from the 17th on, we have been sheltered in place. We've had some essential personnel on campus, as Aaron mentioned, just for access. We have started up some of those essential services in terms of mail access, because students are still sending in their FAFSAs and we are still processing those. So we have some key individuals in financial aid. We are moving towards an online registration, and I'll let the Vice President of Student Services address that. But basically in 6 days, we went from a mixture of, like Kate said, about 20% online to having all of our classes online. There are some classes that I believe Aaron noted that are hard to put online, and we are working not only locally within our own district, but also at the state level to address that by looking at other software packages such as Labster for the labs. I was told in a meeting that we had yesterday that the state is looking at launching Labster next week. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to do with that, but that was what we were told. And they will pay for those services until the end of the year. And then if they're advisable, or if the faculty like those, we might look at using that ongoing. So we are transitioning all of our courses, even those courses that there's about 3 areas that are hard to transition. Wellness is one of them, automotive is the other one, and then our labs are the other ones that we're working on right now, not only locally, like I said, but also at the state level to address those in a timely manner. We're also working with our accrediting agencies, but again, I'll let Jennifer and I'll let Angelica kind of go into that specifically. So next slide. Again, this is the EOC. So Aaron addressed that in his, but here's actual a pictorial organizational structure. So the policy group, which is made up of the presidents and the interim chancellor, are the ones that actually make policy for the whole district. The other subgroups are broken up into planning, into continuity of operations, into logistics, into health, and you can see those areas there. There was a question about communication. Communication during emergency operations is really through one channel. So you've been getting communications, but it has primarily been through the EOC and working with the PIOs on each of the campuses to move forward. So just want you to know that if you haven't gotten a lot of communication from individual vice presidents or from myself, because we were in that emergency operations and we wanted to make sure that it was consistent across the campuses. So that is what the EOC looks like pictorially. All of this will be loaded online so you can go back, and we are also recording it for those individuals that are not there. And if you have questions, again, please send them to fitzpatrickc@smccd.edu. And we will collect those and we'll try to interweave those into our presentations, but we will also take more at the end of this presentation. So next slide. Again, this is about the EOC, and as Aaron mentioned, we've been having meetings twice a day on a daily basis since March the 2nd, really. And so this is just the organizational structure and the activities of EOC. I'm not going to go into all of those because I think you want to get into more definitive actions of what we're doing on campus. So I will turn it over to Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Taylor Mendoza.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. First off, it's wonderful to see everyone. And I just want to also echo thanks to all of you who have stepped up during this time. Your flexibility and your commitment to students are just inspirational. And all the work you've done is just invaluable. It's interesting because we have 74 academic disciplines at Skyline College. And I want to just quickly acknowledge the over 45 STEM, CTE, art, and music who have really done just wonderful work to try to put their labs online. And so I think that's just important to just really acknowledge. As we move forward, there were some things that really needed to be put in place, and one is the online learning and support. And I want to take the time to acknowledge the CTTL, Bianca Roden Quince, Christopher Weidman, Christopher Collins, Amy Maloney, Sophia Forbes, and Ricardo Flores. This team led by Dr. Rollin Moe has just been amazing. Not only have they supported Skyline, but they've also supported the other 2 colleges. And support has come in so many different ranges, from instructional videos, tutorials, and webinars on pedagogical strategies, to hosting CTTL virtual office hours, Canvas and Zoom trainings, individual faculty support, and even student tutorials, as well as just guidance about particular software. And then, of course, accessibility and the understanding how do you have regular and effective contact. So thank you so much to this team. You have been amazing. And I look forward to supporting you as we continue this work over this semester and beyond in the summer and potentially maybe fall. Also, I want to acknowledge ITS and Dr. Rollin Moe for really stepping up to help provide resources to students in regards to technology and equipment, and to our classified professionals as well. So thank you for that. Another thing that we had to do at the same time is bring our study abroad students home from Florence, Italy. Russell Walden, along with his team, Stephanie Wells and Zed Gori, I want to acknowledge you on this call. You did amazing work to bring our students home, our 21 students, I believe that's the number. And they are safe, they are home now, and their parents are really happy. And so I wanted to take the time to really share that with you, because as we're working so much on instructional, there are so many other components happening at the same time that did starting March 12th since we got the order. And I think a lot of people weren't even aware that we had students abroad. So I wanted to just give a shout out to that team as well. Thank you. Next slide. So once again, just to give you an idea of what happened, we had about 75 to 80% of our face-to-face courses transition to online modality. That is heavy duty and that is a lot of work, and we are not alone. Of that, we had 550 to 600 training hours conducted by the CTTO since March 12th. I know we can give maybe a virtual applause, but once again, thank you so much for that team. Very much kudos. Professional development, when it comes to accessibility and regular effective contact, is something that we always continue to work on. And as we move to online learning, we need to really focus on this even more. And so we will keep providing strategies and guidance from my office and from the deans on how to ensure that this is happening. And of course, collaboration with the CTTO. I've already talked to you about the equipment needs. That's something that we're going to continue to work on. I know that ITS is really working really hard to make sure that all students and employees have the equipment and the software they need to do their work remotely. As things come up, we will continue to monitor the situation and work with ITS to ensure that the campus is able to move forward and function. Another thing Dr. Jackson already mentioned, and so did Vice Chancellor Eric McBean, is about the CTE course consideration for lab work and clinical hours. We are figuring all of that out. What we are doing is working with Vice Chancellor Eric McBean to talk about courses that might need to be suspended, and what does that look like to have a student have a record of incomplete or in progress, and what time can that, and what's the time frame for making that up. Also, there's been a lot of work at the state level too to ask for flexibility about lab hours. So we'll have more guidance on that as we work things out. I'm sure there are still faculty and students who are uncertain about online learning and the success. We'll continue to have those conversations as we move forward. This is the platform and this is where we are, and being a student-centered institution, serving a diverse community of learners, I know we will figure it out every step of the way. So I hear you, I understand, we are in uncharted waters, but I know that we have the bandwidth, the academics behind us to really work things out. Another thing that has come up is the adequate software, and I'll speak a little bit to that on the next slide. So some of the key considerations, we're really fortunate. So I'm on the CIO executive board. I am a rep for Region 4. And so Marty Alvarado, who's our executive vice chancellor of educational support at the chancellor office, has been meeting with us weekly. We meet Fridays at 11 a.m. and she has been amazing and getting back and responding. And so I've been very fortunate to be able to ask her questions and get a reply very quick and understand what the next moves are. So I'm going to report out on a few things, and then Dr. Garcia will also report out anything that I have missed in her conversation, because she is too on the CASO executive board. So one of the things that just came out was an executive order by Chancellor Eloy Oakley, and also a memo from Marty Alvarado to discuss a few things. One was grading practices, pass, no pass, incomplete, the difference between incomplete and the difference between in progress. And that refers to if we're going to suspend courses and some guidance around that. Also guidance around extending the term. We have not talked about extending the term right now, but some colleges are considering that, and there's some guidance on that and some flexibility as well. And then course repetition due to extenuating circumstances. All of these things in the executive order allow us to not to get rid of sort of local and Title V policies and procedures that have limited us in the past. We were going to work it out in the district, and we'll have some more clarity on what that exactly means. But that guidance did just come out. It's super exciting because we're going to have a lot of flexibility as we move forward in really supporting our students. One of the things I did mention, of course, we're going to continue to follow the California Health Departments and guidance. That's just a given as it comes to when we will obviously come back online in recovery during our recovery period. As you all are aware too, the Chancellor's Office did a distance education blanket addendum. Yes, I talked to Marty Alvarado. Hopefully a memo will come out soon to talk about summer 2020 as well as fall 2020, putting that in place. The Chancellor's Office is also working really closely with ACCJC on substantive change and making sure that whatever, that we're able to really be fluid and move quickly if there are courses that haven't had a DE addendum. Also, there was a lot of guidance from the Chancellor's Office around hard to convert courses. Dr. Jackson alluded to that, and we are currently working with those disciplines on that. Right now, the focus has been auto, wellness, and some cosmetology, and I've been working really closely with Dean Michael Kane, and he has done a fabulous job in really articulating the needs of those areas. And so we have a plan in place, and I will be working with those areas in particular. There could be also some areas in social science and creative arts. I'll be working with Danny Redding-Lapousse on that as well as we move forward. The state has done an excellent job advocating with licensing agencies and accrediting organizations, in particular to CTE fields. One of the things that was shared with me by Dean Kane from Cassidy Ryan, she was able to work with the Barbering and Cosmetology, and they have approved the virtual lab space and lecture. And so we are seeing that agencies are really accommodating and really becoming flexible. Nursing being the strictest sent out guidelines and how they're going to move forward. So I'm excited that programs like respiratory care and other CTE programs are giving the attention they need, knowing that we are in a time of just needing to be super flexible in how we move forward. The Vision for Resource Center has a ton of resources for colleges. And so these resources, I put the address there, but please feel free to go to the Chancellor's website and so that you can log on and join the Vision for Resource Center. We've had conversations already that free to us is Proctorio, Cranium Cafe, Ally, and then NetTutor, and then Labster. Just got off the phone with Marty Alvarado. They signed the contract for Labster. It should be in effect next week. It's supposed to be super simple. It should be a plug-in to Canvas. And so what will happen is the appropriate Canvas administrator, and I'm assuming that will be CTTL and ITS, will be in contact and will be able to roll that out fairly soon. So local decisions, colleges are now having local decisions around student learning outcomes. And so we're still in the midst of that conversation when it comes to assessment and how do we move forward for this semester and summer. So more guidance will be, hopefully we'll have more guidance on that very soon. Also guidance on dual enrollment and online supervised tutoring. I talked to Marty, hopefully we'll have something out. They'll have something out by next week. Our dual enrollment program led by Andrea Visner is doing really well. Our dual enrollment is all online. Questions have come up around the CCAP, and that's something I'll be talking to Aaron McVean about, but we are good so far. All is going well there. So it's nice to know we are continuing to serve our K-12 student. Another thing, grading policy, flexibility, and term extensions. I'll have Dr. Garcia will probably talk more about that, so I'll move on to the next slide.
Okay, Good afternoon, colegas. Really pleased to see so many of you online. Just want to take a moment to acknowledge that clearly aware that even as we sit in these spaces, we have probably extended families, small children, people running around in the background. And so really appreciate you taking the time to connect with us. As Dr. Taylor Mendoza, go ahead and advance to the next slide, please, just alluded to, I'm going to start by just highlighting a few of the statewide issues and then go into more local, what's been happening from a student services perspective. The item that I'd like to pay attention to here is the ed code implications for students. I'm monitoring the questions that are coming in, and just as a reminder, if you do have questions, please email Connor Fitzpatrick, that's fitzpatrickc@smccd.edu. We are getting these questions live to try to address throughout this presentation and in preparation for the Q&A at the end of our slide deck. In reference to the guidance that we have received so far around the EW grade, excused withdrawal grade, is that this is a moving entity. Each day, each week, we're getting some new guidance. So one of the things, is someone trying to speak? Okay, one of the things to pay attention that we are paying attention to here is really recognizing the impact on students. So the state guidance from the Chancellor's Office has allowed and really removed a lot of barriers that have put for students to have to provide documentation for extenuating circumstances. With that blanket notification, we're clear that COVID-19 is an extenuating circumstance and we're not requiring of students to have to submit any additional information. The piece that we are collectively having to work on is the impact on students, on their transcripts, the connection with faculty and grading. And currently we have our enrollment services committee at the district-wide level comprised of the 3 campuses, entertaining what it looks like to inform students via WebSmart, alert them of this information before they engage in withdrawing from courses, and also streamline so if a student has withdrawn from courses before this information came out, that we are prepared to receive them without any kind of impact or transition on them. The key aspect here to just highlight is that we still need some federal guidance, because although the state has made some leniencies in this, there is an implication from a federal regulatory perspective, especially for students who are acquiring financial aid, for students who identify as veterans, and for international students. There are very strict federal guidelines about their course taking process and satisfactory academic progress, that even though the state is reducing the threshold for that, if the federal government does not do so, then we put students in a compromised position. That is work that's definitely going to take place in conversation from a technical perspective in enrollment services, academic perspective with instruction, and also academic senate, and certainly wanting to ensure student input. So this is stay tuned, because we will be rolling out information as we get more solidified. Bottom line here is the goal is to mitigate the financial and emotional stressor for students, addressing questions that come with refunds, addressing questions that come with having passed the 30% period for the period or the semester. So all of that we're taking into consideration, and students will be receiving that information. The other items I want to address on this slide is the work that's happening on a statewide level. As Dr. Taylor Mendoza alluded to, she and I both have the privilege and responsibility of serving on executive board. So I'm on the CSSO, Chief Student Services Officer Association Executive Board. And on this item with articulation with CSU and UC, a key point here is that you may have heard that the CSUs and UCs are considering converting grades to pass, no pass. From a 4-year perspective, that works for them. For our community college students, especially those that are looking for transfer, we do not have language or MOUs in place related to how their grades will transition upon transfer. So there's still some MOUs that need to get in place here. And during the Q&A, I understand that Dr. Taylor Mendoza might want to address some more. So just wanted to note that. Moving on, we are definitely, as a high priority, really focusing on trying to assess and support students' basic needs during this time. So we do have the continuation of the Food Resource Grant Program. And just as a refresher for those students who were previously receiving vouchers to get on-campus food support that has now been completely moved to support virtually. I'd really like to commend Dr. Luis Escobar and Michelle Batista, Chad Thompson, for their work in this and collaborating with others across the district to make sure that that food resource grant in partnership with Safeway will still allow for our neediest students with food insecurity to get some support. That program is still open to support some new students, so don't feel like just because a student was not already in the program, they wouldn't have access to it. And lastly, as Jennifer alluded to, there is so much information on that Vision Resource Center. So if that's not a website that you have visited yet, please do. There's a lot on there, from the guidance memos from the Chancellor's Office to professional development opportunities. Some programmatic impacts. The Student Services Leadership Team, comprised of the deans, directors, and counseling faculty leads, has been working around the clock since this started. Everything about trying to identify what we could move to online supports. We have about 85 to 90% of student services programs online. We've converted all individual and group counseling interactivity or functions online. Michelle Batista, Perry Chen, and the personal counselors have been reviewing and doing work to also provide personal counseling supports online. And this is a key area. They're still addressing some matters related to HIPAA compliance, but the team is on it to make sure to scale that out. And then there are some key functions related to admissions and records, financial aid, and counseling supports. I am just so pleased and proud and honored of our classified professionals, especially amongst these areas, who have just spent a lot of time really helping us address that interface with students to make sure that we are doing our work to have a streamlined process for students. Some additional work was the creation of student support and engagement communities. Some of that was done primarily through program specific areas, and now there is broader work with the news that we're expanding to the rest of the spring semester for broader support. Students are dealing with a lot right now, as we are, but students are now trying to become engaged as a learner, engaged as a parent, as a sibling, as a care provider. Some of our students are doing jobs that are part of that essential functions and are still going out into the community, and we know that they have a lot going on. So the team, in collaboration with our associated students and other groups, really trying to find and create that space. Want to make a shout out recognition here. EOPS hosted a webinar earlier this week for students who were parents to share ideas about how they are managing being in school, as well as supporting their own children. For many of you, I've received a lot of inquiries from faculty about the CARES team. So please know that Michelle Batista and her team have been working really hard to move that online. So please continue to submit CARES reports. We have an entire team assembled and ready to launch support to students as needed. Our student support technology distribution. So Dr. Taylor Mendoza shared about the technology for faculty and classified professionals this past week under Daman Grawal, who is our Chief Technology Officer at the district office, and Carrie Mitchell helping us with some behind the scenes and all the different teams. I mean, it's hard to acknowledge, but for every one bullet item, there is easily 50 plus people that have helped bring these things to fruition. We did distribute over the past couple of days some technology to students. We realized that we still need to do more to outreach students, so be on the lookout as communication comes out for students on how they can access support with a Chromebook or a calculator. And I've already addressed the food insecurity, though I will say we are still under some conversations with Second Harvest Food Bank, wanting to set up food bank community markets on each of the 3 campuses, trying to figure out how to do that amidst the stay away orders, so please stay tuned. On this particular slide, it's just showing you the programs that have moved online. So everything that you see on here, with the exception of the health center, has moved fully online. So any work or questions that you have previously engaged with colleagues, please do not be shy to reach out. On the websites, we've communicated to students and in communication to students what to expect during the online support. So this just goes to show that students are getting those wraparound support services. As a reminder to please just mute, we're getting a little bit of a background conversation going on. So reminder to please mute yourself. And if you have questions, again, please continue to email Connor Fitzpatrick at his SMCCD. One of the key components, please next slide. I think I'm ready for that last one here. Actually I have two. So some programmatic key impacts on college programs. You see here that there's a mixture here of instruction and student support programs. So what we have here is an acknowledgement that amidst this stay-at-home order, amidst this remote teaching and learning and student service delivery, these are programs and efforts that are being impacted. So I'm just going to highlight a few. International students programs, we're clear that it's possible that we may see a decline in enrollment in international students program, though I trust that Jennifer, Russell, and the team are doing their part to support that program and the students that we have currently enrolled. She shared as well the amazing work that they did to bring students back amidst this time. Not sure at this point whether or not future programs will continue. Child Development Laboratory Center, with all the schools being closed and the impact, we're aware of what this means when our own employees and our students aren't getting some childcare support. Bay Area Entrepreneurship Center, this is an example of something where we are still committed on a financial aspect to pay the lease in that, but we're not collecting rent because those offices are closed and unsure at this time of that interaction. Middle college, working with our high school partners to still support that. And I'm sure during the Q&A, Dr. Taylor Mendoza will be able to answer any additional questions that come up with that. The Promise Scholars Program, as we know, is a district-wide program, so that is really going to be the future of that program and how we continue to support it as the district continues to make its decisions around both the fiscal and human resources support for Promise Scholars. And the last three here, President's Innovation Fund projects, we are receiving some information that we're going to continue with that, but we're aware that with the postponement of our President's Breakfast, just not sure how we're going to see some of those financial external fundraising efforts that we've done in the past to really help pay for our Dream Out Loud projects. And point here on the comprehensive redesign, an impact here might be that we've had so much just really great, amazing work, and having a conversation and just campus discussion about what efforts continue, what efforts might need to be put on hold while we prioritize. So in this last slide here, in looking ahead for spring 2020, continuity of operations through the semester. So all those programs that I shared with you online, the team, the student services, leadership team is working diligently to now look to expand that beyond just what was 3 weeks and having to refine and just get better about how we're connecting and reaching out, especially to those students who are not already currently connected via this virtual format. We are going to have to convert to an online registration process. So this is where Dean Will Minnick, Sue Lorenzo, and team, and working with our instructional colleagues to really figure out how we support students with an online registration process for summer and fall. Just want to be clear that this is about the process of students registering, not making a decision about the small summer and fall being online at this time. Convert our outreach with our high school partners, adult school partners, community agencies, and in this case, I would also even add for recruitment for learning communities. I saw that that was a question that came through. Jeremy Evangelista will certainly and has been working on this, so inviting partners if you are interested in these efforts for some of your own academic programs to please work with him directly. Lucy Hovell and team in the Transfer Center is working tirelessly to support our graduating transfer students to prepare them for what their new life will look like in a four-year institution remotely, but also fielding a lot of questions. The CSU and UC students that have been sent home from the residential programs, as well as local high school students. Some of them are deferring acceptance to the 4 years and really looking at our local community college as part of their entry point. So Transfer Center working diligently to meet student needs there. Financial aid will continue to offer support and workshops for new students and continuing students around FAFSA and DREAM applications. And so Regina Morrison and her team working around the clock on that. At this point, we've received guidance to postpone commencement celebrations. That is something that the board decided and acted on earlier this week. So we're being very clear that we are not canceling anything. We're looking for postponement and trying to work on what that means for students. This is supposed to be a celebratory time, years of hard work, not just for the students, but also their families. And then finally, really wanting to expand that student engagement and community support for all students. We are clear that this is having impact on students. And so the pre-deans under the guidance of the presidents have been working on a student survey to very quickly assess some information around how they're transitioning in this online format, the kinds of supports they need. They'll be receiving that via email and via text message, especially for those students that might not be accessing this virtual format this way. And we have a student response team under Dr. Luis Escobar's leadership. We have a campus-wide student response team, which is kind of like a CARES team plus, so that as those responses are coming in, we are able to connect with students. Literally, this team is going to call students who indicate that they want some follow-up support, and that will be rolling out today and into next week. I want to thank each and every one of you. I especially want to thank our student services team writ large for being there and supporting students and one another. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Eloisa Briones, Vice President of Administrative Services.
Eloisa, if you're trying to speak, you might be muted. And I would remind everyone who's not speaking to please mute your phones. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you again, Angelica. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for all of the support and the hard work that has been done over the past couple of weeks to help us transition the college to the online platform and modality that we're now in the process of doing. I would like to talk about the fiscal impacts of the COVID-19 event that we're facing right now. Yesterday in Spark, we had a briefing of the Spark members about how excited everybody has been to carry out the continuation of the work that we started last fall, anticipating that we are on the trajectory for our budget development process for this spring. What has suddenly happened is that COVID-19 came about, and so there has been a huge impact on our finances. And I say that because, as we all know, San Mateo County Community College District is community supported. We generate our district revenues from property taxes as well as enrollment fees. And with what has happened with enrollments not coming in as anticipated, now we're going to be affected by enrollment declines, particularly in the international student arena. We're anticipating that there's going to be 78 student headcount decline for international students for the following year. And that sort of translates to a decrease for our international student program site allocation from $1.65 million to about $1.1 million. This affects not just Skyline, but it's also impacting the other two colleges. And so overall, the district resource allocation model is going to anticipate some significant changes. Currently, we're waiting for the resource allocation model from the district to be finalized, and that's still in process right now. And so if we anticipated that we were going to have additional funding for this year, we may still have additional funding this year, except that it's not going to be as high as what we originally anticipated. And so we would keep track of the changes that the district is providing through the resource allocation model. And Spark would still have continued conversations around what the site allocations and the budget distributions are going to be for next year, assuming the amount of money that we're going to get in our site allocation. Another fiscal impact for us would be the high unemployment and the suspension of CSU on-campus residents. This would likely increase Skyline enrollment. And Angelica and Jennifer had heard from our high school partners that a lot of the parents are also considering not sending their students to colleges outside of the county or outside of the state because of the fear of this pandemic. And so we're anticipating then that these high school students are going to come to the community colleges and enroll, and thus that would most likely increase our enrollment. Another factor to consider would be the state categoricals and grant funding that we receive from the state. In the past, what we had always been looking out for whenever we develop our budget would be the changes in the state budget, as well as the economy when we're anticipating a recession, as well as the impacts on us through whatever federal regulations might happen. And so in this particular event, we're anticipating that it might very well be that state categoricals and grant funding like the lottery and Prop 30 would be significantly impacted depending on what the state revenues come in to be. And lastly, Aaron and I think Angelica had mentioned that we're operating under the NIMS SIMS environment now that we're under EOC. And so the district is capturing as much of the related to COVID. We're going to be doing the same thing in college when we have requests for any equipment or any resources. We're going to try and establish a COVID-19 folk so that we're able to generate the reports that would be needed to be submitted to the federal government for reimbursement through FEMA. So we will provide additional instructions with how to do that in the future. Some specific examples of the COVID-19 financial impacts. I think some of these have already been mentioned previously, but I just wanted to highlight some of them. Of course, the postponement of the President's Breakfast would also delay the funding for the President's Innovation Fund as well as the Promise Scholars Program. The district relies on investment income that we collect, and that becomes part of the revenues of the district, that becomes part of the overall resource allocation model when the funds are distributed to the sites. And so all of the volatility in the capital markets that we're experiencing would have an adverse effect on our projected district revenues for investment income. As well, we have facilities rentals, of course, that we generate revenue from. And as previously mentioned, we also generate some revenues from BAEC, the CDLC, and Passport Acceptance Office. All of those brought a little bit of money in to support the operations of their particular offices, but now we're still experiencing having to pay out on the lease contracts while we're not receiving any revenues to offset against those. Lastly, we are going to experience for sure decreased parking fees because there would be no students coming on site. Cafeteria and bookstore revenues are also anticipated to be significantly reduced. We also anticipate that there might be expenditures that will be significantly higher, and that would be the hardware, software, and networking expenditures that we are likely to incur, as well as professional development for faculty and staff. Where we might see a little bit of savings would be the facilities charges, staffing supplies, due to the postponement of some of our year-end events, some of the instructional materials and supplies because the students will not be coming into our lab, as well as savings in travel and conferences. All of these pressures and factors will influence the tentative budget recommendation that will be made to SPARC. So what I just would like to encourage everybody to think about and consider would be just be flexible at this point in time. We just have to adjust our budget processes depending on the information that we get. And so we are still going to resume our conversations in SPARC around the distribution and allocation of resources for next year, hoping that we would have positive additional information, additional increase in our site allocations for next year. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Jackson, who would speak on recovery and the year ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I want to really leave some time for questions, and we've had several questions that have come through. The biggest thing on the recovery, and I'll address it because there have been a couple of questions about that, is we don't know right now when we will move from the stay in place, the stay in shelter, until a decision is either given to us by the health authorities that has been lifted, or by the governor's office, because those are the operations that we are working on. It isn't a decision that we can make as a campus or as a district. You've been listening, I'm sure, to the news as well as I have, and indications is that we have not reached the peak of the COVID-19 virus health concerns, that we may not reach that for another 2 to 3 weeks, and then they're not sure how long that will be sustained. So no decision right now has been made on moving to recovery, but also on the flip side, no decision has been made on if we are going to have summer classes or if this is going to affect fall classes. I got at least a couple of questions on that, and no decision has been made until we can get an assessment on the health. The reason we have the stay and shelter current directive is because of the health concerns. So until that changes, we are going to remain in this mode that we're in right now and try to do the best that we can. So we do have some decision points that have been identified, because when we do move from recovery, I'm sorry, someone, if you would mute your phone. I thought there was a question coming in, but until we get any kind of indication from our health officials, we will remain in the shelter in place, which is what the board decided and made that decision this Wednesday, which is why we're having this this forum, because we wanted to make sure everybody got that. Not everybody was logged on, although there was a record number of individuals that attended the board meeting remotely. So we're not sure right now. As we move forward to recovery, we will resume operations, but they will be tiered. We will not all just show up, one day. If they say, okay, we're in recovery mode, we will have to do that in a tiered method. We will scaffold in different base organizations like instruction, student services, administrative services, and executive. But that will be done in collaboration with the EOC and with our board of trustees. Next slide. Okay, so this is what we can anticipate for the year ahead. COVID-19 power shortages, power shutdowns, fires, all of those go under EOC. We're not sure about our enrollment. It might decrease, but it also might increase because of some of the actions that have been taken by our four-year brothers and sisters. We'll continue to assess our long-term fiscal impacts. We will try to get money from FEMA. That's why we are keeping track of the hours that we're using. We might get some decrease in funding from the state. People know that we are basic aid, so they tend to think that we're buffered from that, and we are to a certain extent, but all of our categorical funded programs still get money from the state. And if the state reduces those, we still have to have those services. We've been hearing about a recession. Some people are even saying maybe a depression. So we also have to make sure that we can sustain ourselves during that time. So there is going to be some major changes. When I sent out the letter from the president, I said, we're trying to maintain normal operations under unusual circumstances. And that really is what we're trying to do. But I believe that this current epidemic or pandemic, if you want to use that term, is really going to change the way we do instruction and the way we provide services to our students. So with that, I'm not going to go into a lot more detail because I do want to save some time for questions. So question and answers, and we have some already queued up. And this slide presentation will be available to you, but I do want to leave some time for questions. So I think the first one that we have queued up is instruction. So Jennifer, if you'd like to take those, and we'll go down the list. And if you have any other questions, please send them to fitzpatrickc@smccd.edu so that we can capture those. And in the time we have left, try to address all of those questions. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. So the first question, will this online teaching continue on through the summer semester and fall? Dr. Jackson just stated that we're not sure yet. As soon as we know, we will let you know. I know some colleges out there have already made the call, but we're not there yet. So we will let you know soon. How can we get into our offices to pick up teaching items needed for the remainder of the semester? Dr. Aaron McBean spoke to that already. He is going to be working with the vice presidents and the deans to set up a schedule so that individuals are able to pick up their things. Hopefully you will have that information fairly soon. We are working on that right now. What is the status of using Proctorio? Is there a date when we will have? Yes, so Proctorio is available already for use along with Cranium Cafe and NetTutor and things of that nature. So right now we're in conversations with our Canvas administrator at the campus and ITS on how to get those services to you immediately. So hopefully we'll have that worked out next week, and so that'll be used, if not next week, the week after. Will we be compensating part-time faculty for the above and beyond work they have been doing to move their courses online, especially as this pandemic may impact enrollments and thus their potential employment in the summer or fall? So yeah, we definitely, you know, even before the pandemic, if part-time faculty are doing something over, we want to definitely support that. This needs to be a larger conversation with the VPs just to ensure consistency on the other two campuses as well. But I am supportive of this. It just, we need to figure out sort of parameters around it and making sure to work closely with the deans as well. Can students drop and also get a full refund? Yes, absolutely. Dr. Garcia can address that more during her questions, question and answers. What is the recommendation for instructional faculty that have not been able to connect with students since the transition to fully online? So I think this question is having to do with if you are not able to contact them or connect with them via WebSmart or Canvas. And so obviously there's, you know, situations where you can try to call. What we want to do too is work with student services. There's a list already of students that they're identifying that maybe have not been engaged or fallen off. So let's work really closely with the deans to try to get an avenue in which how we can get you connected to the students and see what's happening, what's going on. Next question. How can auto, cosmetology, and other CTE programs certify competence with face-to-face lab? How are we transitioning these programs? I already discussed that we've been in communication with the dean of that area on which courses need to be suspended. And we are trying to figure out whether that will look like an incomplete or an in progress. And then the time frame for which that certification will take place and those labs hours made up. There's also been conversation around allowing programs to potentially go on campus, say, I'll say auto, to maybe conduct some lab work, you know, in respecting social distancing, but we are not there yet, but we are working that out right now, and hopefully we'll have something soon, some guidance on that soon. Next questions. How are we dealing with ongoing hiring committees? What about faculty being hired for fall? I will mention something. Dr. Jackson may want to follow up. There are certain positions that are in the finalist stage. We are moving forward with those positions. There are other positions that are in the recruitment phase, and we are reviewing all the positions and considering which ones we want to move forward with now and potentially which ones can be on hold. We're not sure. We're not saying that we're going to hold, but we're looking into the impact of the budget. You heard Eloisa talk about the budget next year and some of the concerns, but those positions that are at the finalist stage, we are moving forward, and we are reviewing current positions right now that are in recruitment. I'll keep going unless you want to say something to that, Dr. Jackson. No? Okay.
I did. I just had my phone muted, so I had to jump back over to another screen. What Jennifer said is absolutely true. We've had this discussion at the policy group level, and the discussion was that if we're in the finalist stages, we will go forward with those and make our recommendations. They will go to the board. The board will have final approval, and depending on what the budget looks like, that's where we are right now. And we won't know that until we can do an assessment of what our enrollment is for the spring semester, which has been impacted. There was a question about, can a student drop out? Will students get refunds? The answer to both of those are yes and yes. There is a procedure that they have to go through to do that, but we're not encouraging students to drop out because we want them to be successful. They're here for a reason. And so this is affecting everything, even their future ability to attain jobs or get promoted within the jobs they have. So that is the stance that we're taking right now. But like anything else with this pandemic, things change from day to day. So I don't know if we're going to extend until the summer. I don't know if we're going to extend until the fall. It will depend on what's happening on the health scene. So thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jackson. So next question, is there an updated grading policy? How can students change grade mode from letter grade to pass, no pass? So two things. I indicated that we just received an executive order and guidance about the pass, no pass. So we're gonna need to bring that back and consider that. There's a team already working on that, so we'll have more information soon. And regarding the grading policy, the state is also sending out guidance about grading procedures and practices. And so hopefully we'll have some information fairly soon on that. Has this been amended in WebSmart so students can change the grade mode to pass, no pass, now that this executive order temporarily suspends the 30% deadline? So once again, no, we have not done that yet, made any sort of amendments in Banner where we need to, you know, get the protocol and get everything in place first. Have students been made aware? Great question. I'm going to say no, but I'll let Dr. Garcia speak to that. What about the excuse withdrawal option for spring grading? Yes, it is definitely there. The excuse withdrawal sent out, part of the executive order, does not penalize a student in regards to their academic status or, it doesn't, penalize their time of completion. We just want to be very clear with students. What does it mean to refund completely? And what does an excuse withdrawal mean? And so it's available and it's there, and we'll provide more guidance. I will provide more guidance to the deans about that, and then Helica can speak to that too, as far as what admissions is doing. For lab courses that are unable to complete the content online, will there be options to schedule partial or 0 credit summer courses for students? Absolutely. We're doing exactly what we can for students to get through, and we'll do what we need to. Will middle college be impacted by the COVID-19? Students are currently applying for this program. Is this program going to continue? Great question. Absolutely, we're going to continue. The team at Middle College, Martina Center, Raymond Jones, Chris Gibson have done an excellent job in transitioning students to online. So yeah, that is going to continue along with dual enrollment. Does finalist status include president selection? When will that get done? Does finalist status, I need a more, so yeah, definitely finalist status includes the president selection. Are you talking about the president position or the faculty position?
I think it's president position, Jennifer, as I'm reading. It sounds like this question is just, so what's happening with the president selection is how I'm reading that question.
Got it. Dr. Jackson, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I will speak to that. This was discussed at the last board meeting on Wednesday. As one of the board members said, the operative word is alacrity. They are moving forward with the selections. You know who the finalist candidates are. You know who the finalist candidates are for the presidents. And the board would like to make a decision on the chancellor's position before we move forward with the president's position. And I believe the consensus was that we are looking at concluding all of that by the middle of April. And it will probably be done just like we're doing this through a Zoom modality so that the forums will go forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I think that concludes all of the questions that I have received for the instruction. Feel free to continue as time is allotted. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is Angelica, and I will address the questions that came in for student services. Again, for anyone who may have joined late, if you have a question, please email Connor Fitzpatrick, fitzpatrickc@smccd.edu. First question is, will we be allowed on campus on a limited basis anytime soon? Yes, that was answered in Dr. McVeen's opening comments. Information forthcoming about how colleagues will be able to access beginning spring break. Next question, how will we be doing outreach, especially for learning communities for the fall 2020 semester? The recommendation here, as I shared with adjusted outreach strategies, is to work with Jeremy Evangelista as our prime outreach coordinator. We have student ambassadors whom we want to keep employed and assisting us during this time, and would note that that would be a great person to connect, as Jeremy also works with Grace Beltran through the counseling division for our high school liaison program as well. The next question is again connected to students dropping and getting a refund. I want to just provide some clarity here that students can withdraw, though we are working to support students to avoid that. The state orders have in fact put in place supports for students to get refunds. It's at a local decision, and that is still under development under the leadership of our CFO, Bernada Slater, at the district office. Because this is connected to the EW grade, I'm actually going to invite Dr. Erin McVeen to help address this, because this is a district-wide response around that EW grade. Erin, are you able to chime in at this point, please?
Yeah, thanks, Angelica. Yeah, so the executive order came down allowing us to apply the EW grade, and what it really did was removed all of those bureaucratic processes that have been put in place of sign-offs, forms, and justification. Right now, we're asking all faculty to encourage students, if they're thinking about dropping, to just hold off. We're trying to set up the technical process of being able to apply the EW grade that would then cascade into the refund of appropriate fees, whether or not they're doing one class as an EW or whether they choose an EW for all of their classes at once. And there's different fees associated with that. So we'll be working on that guidance and hopefully have something by the end of spring break. So, and we've had questions from students, should I drop right now? Where we're asking people, please advise them, please hold off if you can. Connect with your counselor, right? Connect with support services. The other thing that is unknown is the impact of an EW grade for federal regulations. So the Veterans Administration is supposed to be issuing guidance on March 30th about what it means if a student withdraws and drops their units, because veterans benefits are tied to units. And just because our state chancellor issued the executive order doesn't mean that it automatically applies to any of the federal regulations. So the EW discussion is ongoing. We should be able to issue some guidance both to faculty, student services professionals, as well as students very soon. But that's where we're currently at with the EW. Thanks, Angelica.
Yep, thank you, Aaron. One final note there before I move on to the next question. Just also want to stress that this is going to be a collaborative discussion. So I believe I have later this afternoon a meeting with Academic Senate leadership, because I want to make sure to include faculty perspective to complement the technical aspect of what is at play. So just to reassure everyone that we're doing our part to make sure that all constituencies and impacted parties are included, as well as student leadership in this capacity. Moving forward on the questions, the next one is, what are we doing to mitigate or help faculty with children who are finding teaching while caring for a toddler quite difficult? I'd like to say that I feel like I'm praying for all of us, but in all seriousness, I do have immediately following this forum a meeting with the Associated Student Leadership, precisely, and what I'll share is that it's for students, but as I'm seeing this question, it could be expanded to faculty, is one of the items for discussion on that broad engagement is what it would look like to offer a Zoom function like this, almost like a story hour for children. Not ideal, but it could offer a little bit of reprieve to have some of our very own Skyline College student ambassadors and employees and others be able to hold a story hour for children, creative storytelling, and certainly I will make note of this, and in my meeting immediately following Associated Student Leadership include that could be an invitation not just for fellow students, but potentially for colleagues as well. So thank you for that question. Next one is, have students been getting support for how to learn best online, similar to how CTTL has been so great for faculty? What I will answer, and Jennifer, I'm going to ask for you to chime in here related to this, is I know that we've sent communication out and we have a virtual web page that has come out via the district. And there are a lot of tutorials and webinars and things of the like of that nature. I do not have any update information as to whether ASLT is doing any ongoing support with that. And the last piece I'll just share is with that student survey that Ingrid has been working to send to students to get an idea of how they're transitioning to technology. My guess is that we'll get some additional information there to be able to respond to those needs. Jennifer, do you have anything to add on this item?
Yeah, there has been a lot of support with CTTL in partnership with Learning Commons, in particular the Learning Center, through Chelsea DeBar and Gabrielle Nocito. There has been some support for students, and we can, I can have Roland Moe sent out more information to the faculty if needed, for faculty and to the deans. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer, you might want to be close on this one because this one's connected to international students. What's being done for international students? Will they receive communication on their status and procedures for going back home, or general questions? I know that I have some information, but perhaps firsthand from you would assist, Jennifer.
And if I could just jump in real quick, I got a note from Nicole Porter saying that the Education, Child Development and Child Development Center is currently working on developing resources for families and parents to include story times and activity calendars.
Great, Dr. Porter, I might be reaching out to you because we could probably use your expertise in supporting the student leadership who want to provide this. So hopefully you'll be welcome an email or inquiry or invitation to join us in that conversation. Thank you.
Quickly, because I know the time, yes, and yes, Wissam Banani and Russell Walden have been working really closely with international students and doing a lot of the messaging. I can send information out. If you're interested in that, please send me an email and I can provide you more information. Thank you.
Great, we're moving along, y'all. We're trying to get to the questions. Has there been an extension or change to the deadlines for PIF proposals and annual plan submissions? For the PIF proposals, I believe that we did discuss an extension, and communication will be coming out about what that means, so please stay tuned. And as far as annual plan submissions, as was shared in Spark yesterday, we're still going to adhere to the deadlines, but should there be any change in development, to see communication come out from our Spark Tri-Chair leadership. Next is a recommendation that I will gladly note to create a single chart with links for all of student services so that faculty, full-time and adjunct can access. Great idea, duly noted. Is the community market still running? This is one where when I made reference to Second Harvest Food Bank, we're trying to figure out how to do this and offer an operation at once a week or once every couple weeks. Chad Thompson is the lead for our campus as director of Spark Point. Currently, we're underway to try to set that up. The National Guard has been deployed to assist with some of these efforts on the food packaging. The thing that we are trying to work out is the distribution site at the 3 campuses and the workforce that's needed to still provide that. So when we're ready to launch communication about its availability, that will be made available to the entire community. Next question.
So I just want to jump in because we exceeded our time limitation. And I know there's some great questions under, especially under the finance. I know you're at the bottom of your questions, but if you could, Paul, you and Eloisa, address those in the next couple of minutes because we're going to have to get off.
Great question, Cranium Cafe. Yes, we're working on it, figuring that out. And then this final question, status of providing legal support to students in the coming semesters, specific to the legal clinic support. We'll be working with Chad Thompson and certainly with our colleagues in the paralegal program, with Danny Redding Lapuz and Jesse Raskin. So opportunity to connect, more information forthcoming. Thank you.
So the first question, this is Eloisa. The first question for HR Finance is, many people are having difficulty with VPN access and IT is slow to respond and IT cannot get to people's offices to troubleshoot. How do we deal with that? So I would like to refer this question to Aaron. Aaron, are you
okay? Yes. Thanks, Eloisa. Just looking at the question again. So difficult VPN access. So the best way to submit a request for assistance for ITS right now is to go through the ITS help desk. You know, this is one of those things where we're asking a lot of ITS right now. We were asking them to do the laptop distribution and materials to students the last couple of days. So please do have patience, but they will get back to you. If it's something they can address remotely, that's ideal right now. They can do screen sharing, they can walk folks through. They are still providing one-on-one support face-to-face, only at CSM Building 34 at this point, and they'll make an appointment with folks in order to troubleshoot issues there as needed. This is part of, when that happens, we do have to do, they're doing PPE protocols in order to stay safe. And so those are the 2 realms that they're doing. Ideally, if they can support remotely, that's the best. They're still making one-on-one appointments. So do check in through the ITS help desk.
Thank you, Aaron. So the next question is it possible that when the stay-at-home order is lifted for the county, state, classified employees will be allowed to return to work, even though the remainder of instruction will be held online this term? So I think Jennifer had mentioned earlier that the recovery would be it's going to be tiered, it's going to be scaffolded. And I think the priority is going to be for CTE courses be taught on campus first. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron or Jennifer.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be a plan that's going to be adopted for the transition. It's not going to be all at the same time. There's going to be a plan that's going to be prepared for the transition to working back on campus.
Yeah.
The
Correct. Yeah, correct. If you're talking, sorry, Eloise, I thought you said CTE, the prioritization for the labs. Absolutely.
Yes.
As far as, yes. Uh-huh.
So the next question is, how are we handling budgets and spending down? Some of us have classroom equipment, furniture, etc., that is set to be delivered. How is this going to be handled by the college? So let me answer the second question first. We are still accepting shipments through the bookstore. But Aaron, I think, is sort of like monitoring all of that. We're trying to minimize access to the campus. If there's going to be major shipments that are going to be made to the campus, then we'd have to alert the bookstores, because it's going to mean storage, it's going to mean access later on. And so work with Paul Cassidy and Judy and myself to let us know what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. With regard to handling spending down the budget, it's likely that there's going to be strong advocacy from the CBOs and from the program managers and coordinators across the state for us to request for an extension due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we will keep you posted. In the meantime, work closely with Barbara, Judy, and Paul with regard to monitoring your budget so we can help you and assist. The next question is, are there any options for reimbursement if I've had to purchase equipment in order to work from home properly? Also, several work projects require a second screen. Does IT have screens and dongles or connectors so folks can still function efficiently and effectively? So with regard to the purchasing equipment, I would recommend that you go through your dean, because there's a chain of approval that has to be made before any of these purchases can be made. So direct your request to your dean, that's going to channel up to the vice presidents eventually. And what we're going to do too is to bring this topic to our joint VP operational group and address it as a group, because like, it's not just Skyline who's going to be having questions like this raised at our campuses. We'd have to consider what CSM and Cañada are going to do with requests like this. What about hiring positions that are in review, application stage for classified or the apply stage for faculty? I think this has already been answered by Jennifer, Angelica, and Dr. J. And the last question is, how will Skyline students get access to borrowing Chromebooks and support for software use? How will the college find out who needs it? Again, I would direct this. I would suggest that you work with your dean, similar to the response that I gave to how to purchase for equipment. In order for you to be working at home, work with your dean with regard to requesting for Chromebooks.
So thank you, Eloisa. I did want either Connor or Roger to address the question about how we could get access to the recorded version of this webinar. And if there are additional questions, what mechanism do we have in place for that? And then that will conclude our webinar, because we've gone over our time, and hopefully they won't disconnect us. Thank you.
So if there are additional questions, you can continue to send them to me, and then I can, I'll circulate them to the cabinet and see if we can collect some answers in group format. Additionally, and Roger, you can confirm this, but I can send out an email to all faculty and staff with a link to the recording.
Yeah, there was some issues recording in the beginning, but yeah, I'll work with you trying to get that, and we'll figure out how we're gonna get that to everyone.
So I want to thank everyone for, I know some people came in and then logged off, and then people came in at different times. So that's why we repeated the questions. So I want to thank everybody for all of their hard work. We really are a village, and we are working, trying to help our students as well as keeping ourselves safe. So stay safe. And we will continue with business as usual under unusual circumstances. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.